happy bros. Hey, you're about to get a face full of the Ken Bozak. He's a mentor. That's what I heard. He's a connector. Oh, yeah. He's a brilliant leader. I've seen it. He's Ken Bozak. Oh, happy bro. You gotta get some Bitcoin and hold it. Happy bros. You gotta get those NFTs and you gotta hodl that stuff. You gotta hodl it. 'Cause I'm Ken bro. We got your Bitcoin, bro. He's an original. Buy some NFTs and hold them. How many times does he have to tell you? Going to the moon. We're 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 gonna get real high. 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 Yeah, we're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. Bro, we're going to the moon. Oh yeah, we're going to the moon. We're gonna get real high. Real high. Yep. Real high. Hello, happy bros. Come get your Ken Bozak.
And we're live, bro. All right, GM in the afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to not another Bitcoin podcast. How goes it? I'm Ken Bozak. Today we're going to be talking about some Dash and whatnot. We got my bro, Age of Doge here. How goes it, bro?
Oh, excellent. Good to be here.
Same and likewise, man. I'm just having a day. Everything is so interesting, waking up and there's literally like life-changing news, just consuming my morning just to catch up with the 8 hours I got sleeping. And I feel like we're living in like, one of the best viewer opportunities, like if all of this is just a reality show for some fourth dimensional beings, this is peak season content right now. I'm digging it, man. You know what? Let's I guess kick it off. We'll start at the beginning. We'll finish at the end, right? Let's do this right. Introduce yourself to the audience. Let them know a little bit about who you are, maybe how you got into crypto, and what you're doing in the space now.
So I got into crypto because, well, I don't want to use the government money. I've wanted an alternative to that for a long time, and actually kind of went looking for something like Bitcoin very early on, and I saw it. God, must have been sometime in 2010, and I looked at it. I was like, that's a neat idea, but nobody's going to do it. It's too bad. And I kind of forgot about it until I saw it on the front page of Slashdot when it broke $1. And then I was like, wait a second, there's a price. People are actually valuing this at something. And then I jumped off the deep end and started like figuring out how it works, how to mine it, and eventually went around and uh, passed out tablets to local businesses and got them all accepting it, and started a weekly Bitcoin meetup that ran for quite a long time. But then the blocks filled up. Bitcoin didn't really scale. All the merchants that I had signed up stopped accepting it. People stopped spending it. And we kind of slid backwards. So I started looking for an alternative that wouldn't end up the same way, where I wouldn't put in a bunch of work and then have it not scale. So I started looking into, well, who's doing this with a serious intention to make it usable as money. And then I came into Dash at that point. And I'm still here because despite how old of a coin Dash is now, there really aren't a lot of other projects that are really serious about being digital cash. And um, the practical situation is that as someone who doesn't want to have to use banks or credit cards at all, um, the Dash is really the only option that allows me to replace nearly all. I'm not 100% crypto, but I can spend, do 90 to 95% of my personal and my business spending on Dash at this point, it's pretty nice. I'd love it to be 100. There's a few little edge cases that we don't quite have solved yet, but for normal everyday use, it's pretty good. I'm also very excited about this as an online retailer. You may tell from my background here. This is my inventory behind me. I sell board game pieces, actually, people that design custom, mostly Euro style board games. Very niche, but
That's
um,
cool though.
yeah. But dealing with credit card fees and fraud is not ideal. And I
No,
think it's kind of
chargebacks are
an
enough to ruin a small business alone.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer to me for retail to adopt crypto, and I'm a bit surprised at how slow it's been. I think the problem is, you really have a problem of it's not worth it for them to adopt unless there's a bunch of people walking around with some ready to spend, and nobody's going to have some ready to spend if there's not places for them to spend it. So you have kind of
Yeah.
this balancing act, this chicken and egg problem, which we're trying to bridge in Dash with things like our Dash Spend wallet that kind of uh, does a neat little gift card trick to allow you to walk into all the regular stores and spend your coins, which is super useful for somebody like me that doesn't want to deal with the headache of credit cards.
Yeah, well, why don't we do what the credit card companies did to get accepted? The Diner Club card, wasn't accepted anywhere really, but people had it that had money, and they went to these, limited stores that did accept it, and the stores that seen that customer, they were like, oh, that person has money, but they have it in a certain form. We should probably figure out how to accept the way that they spend their money. And then, Diner Club Card, American Express, Discover, they went out and did a thing for the merchants to accept it. And, now they charge them 3 to 5, 7%, but there was an incentive beyond that. And I feel like, especially Dash is in a very, unique position to incentivize and reward merchants for accepting Dash in a way that, somehow they could earn extra Dash for each amount of Dash per transaction that they accept at the business. So then the business would be incentivized to kind of tell the customer, hey, we could take cash with your debit card or cash, but you could also just buy some Dash, and if you spend it here you'll get 10% off, because maybe they make 15% more, and then they have that 5% vig to play with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd love to do that as a marketing strategy. I think it's a good one. The problem there, of course, is budget. We don't have a big pile of VC money or anything to burn. The Dash DAO's budget is pretty much linked to the price, and the crypto prices, well, we've done relatively good compared to the market over the past few months.
Yeah.
It's still not an enormous amount of money to throw out there. Though I think there's a bigger problem, and that is the payment processor situation. Most businesses can't or aren't going to be willing to manage swapping their own crypto and
Mm.
having exposure to the volatility and everything. They want to be able to settle in fiat. Um, and for the volume that we're going to give them, it's not worth them figuring out that part themselves. There needs to be a bridge there.
True.
And the payment processors we have are honestly pretty bad. Especially in the United States. I think it's a different situation in different countries, but here we had BitPay, who it seems has moved from a model of trying to facilitate crypto payments to that's just charge people a bunch of money to be listed on our on our wall on our accept to be accepted in our payment system. And um they're adding meme coins instead of
Well, the
coins
problem
that
is
are
the meme
actually
coins
useful.
don't mind spending the money for that infrastructure support, right? Like you get it. Being like a
Yeah.
payment rail or a payment processor rail that accepts any token or asset, they have to build, the infrastructure for that support. They have to run nodes, they have to get some hardware, and they even have to have some liquidity in a pool somewhere to make the transactions more streamlined. So it's like it does cost a lot to get listed. I mean, not to like I'm supporting, whatever. I'm just, kind of just trying to state the obvious is they just don't mind wasting the money on that stuff because that kind of like, market movement, that's the buy the rumor, sell the news stuff that's still worth it for smaller meme coin size communities. But like again, that investment to, say a price action ROI wouldn't do much for something as large as Dash.
No, yeah, I mean, well, getting, if they were to add us to BitPay, that would help us because we have actual users that would use that.
Yep.
Like currently I check out if I run into a BitPay checkout, I use one of those quick swap services. I select Dogecoin because it's the only coin on BitPay that you can actually pay with a regular address for some reason. And that everything else wants to do, some jank wallet connect stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then I swap my Dash to Dogecoin and pay the invoice. Uh, like the thing about the whole, it's expensive to put up infrastructure with BitPay is that like this isn't infrastructure anybody's actually using. Nobody's using Shiba Inu coin to buy anything. Uh, their business model has just moved completely away from actual use of crypto, which for a payment processor, um, they're just not doing what they are. It's not a payment processing business.
Yeah.
It's a shilling
Do you think
junk
they'll
business.
always be accepting those tokens, or will there be some kind of like a delisting wave of like zero maintenance? I don't see these tokens maintenancing being listed, so I feel like it was, kind of like a one-hit wonder kind of, hey, we got listed over here, and then eventually they'll be delisted because they're not like supporting the updates and stuff like that.
Maybe it assumes that they care if anybody uses them or not, I guess. Um, when we have the same problem with like Coinbase is probably the other large player that has a payment system, and I can't remember the last time I ran into a website or anything that had a Coinbase Commerce checkout. It just doesn't exist, and they also don't support Dash in favor of some
Yeah,
fairly useless
that
coins.
was
But
such a
the bigger problem is,
disappointing thing. The Coinbase merchants. It should have been bigger. It could have
well,
been bigger.
I don't know of a single merchant that even uses
Me
it. That
neither.
Coinbase is a sizable company that could definitely onboard
Mm-hmm.
merchants if they wanted to, but they're more interested in making money on stable coins and people gambling on memes, and
Yep.
which I guess makes some business sense for them, but it does nothing for the industry. And I feel like we
Yeah.
just we don't have a major player in the payment space that's really facilitating that. I mean, there's definitely stuff you can use like BitRequest, and I use Now Payments, which works
Oh,
great.
cool. Well, that just means
Um,
there's room in the market for competition. That really incentivizes somebody to, fill the void, right? And what Coinbase has with merchant could totally be fixed with some kind of freelance Avon sales rep kind of, canvassing kind of thing with a affiliate or referral downline for people to go knock on the doors of small businesses, help them get set up with the Coinbase merchant platform, and then kind of earn something from that when they walk away, right? But yeah, you're right. They need to they definitely need to reevaluate all that stuff. And I guess I wanted to jump into some Dash questions real quick, if you don't mind, kind of
sure, yeah.
pivoting towards that more.
Go into
You know,
Dash.
it's privacy used to be kind of like the second part of the conversation when I first got into Bitcoin and crypto in general in 2016. it was sort of, this immutable private, it was the second thing you heard, thing that's unconfiscatable and all this stuff. And I feel like we've fallen so far from the point that Satoshi was trying to make with the proof of concept that was SHA-256, right? It's like, the narrative of speculation kind of rewrote the actual education we were supposed to get. And I'm just wondering, like, right now, with all that, with privacy kind of being null and void at like the social level, where Elon, or not, Edward Snowden literally lost his freedom to tell us and show us what's happening behind the scenes, and people don't care. It was nothing. It was like that scene from Jurassic Park. He's like, "Hey, the NSA is spying on you," and nobody cares. Nobody cares, man. So does Dash still have a relevancy currently in a market and in conditions to socially like we have today?
Well, I think we've seen that there is quite a bit of interest in privacy. It's the one part of the crypto market that has actually been doing decent lately are the privacy coins, Dash included. We've gotten a pretty good bump on that. And privacy features are improving. In Dash, we have now the Zcash technology, the Orchard system put into the Dash platform network, which not only facilitates Dash transactions privately, but would allow tokens that are issued on the Dash platform to also have um, private pools for the users of those tokens. So I think that's very, very exciting and very useful. At what point at some point we need to get to a place where that's in common usage. But as I kind of alluded to earlier, even most of the regular crypto is not in common usage either. So I think there's plenty of room for uh, the cryptos that end up being used as currency to be privacy coins. I think that makes the most sense. And in the case of Dash, there's a overlap of the best usability with privacy in it. Um, for a lot of projects, there are some pretty substantial trade-offs to that privacy, mainly in how slow and sometimes computationally expensive it is to do
Mm-hmm.
transactions. Um, so with Dash, you're able to get privacy and essentially instant finality on your transactions, which I think is really essential. If you want to have especially an in-person experience, I go to Home Depot and I check out, my transactions got to be as fast as the person that taps their card. If it's not, I'm just holding everything up. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be a comfortable experience. So I think it's really essential to have that instant finality. And if you don't have finality and you can cheat it, you could have a payment processor that absorbs some risk, but that's going to add cost and friction.
Yeah.
Um, and it matters for online stuff too. Sometimes you want to pay for access to something and then get it immediately. You don't want to wait 10 or 20 minutes to download the file or get access to the platform or whatever it is you're trying to do. If you buy a Netflix subscription, you probably want to watch it right away, not tomorrow. Um, so I think it's important both to have usability and privacy.
Yeah, I'm with you. Unfortunately, though, I kind of would say that that would mostly only matter, I guess, to the business side of it, really, because the customer doesn't really care about the settlement layer, right? Like if I use a Visa card at McDonald's, it still takes 3 to 5 days for that transaction to settle on their end. They just have this bubble of debt or credit or whatever that's in the balance sheet of that 3 to 5 window. They see it pending, but it still takes 3 to 5 days for Visa to give McDonald's that money into their account. So the customer genuinely doesn't care about the settlement layer. It's more so for the businesses. And I would also say that probably appeals to that privacy aspect as well. Like Samsung versus Apple, when they buy certain chips, they don't want the other to find out because it kind of gives the secret away about what the next product's going to have in it. And maybe they'll try to leapfrog that product or reach out to that manufacturer if they see, oh, Samsung just did a deal with this chip manufacturer. I'm Apple. Let's see if we can pay double and get all the chips so they don't have them, for them or whatever. So I feel like the B2B stuff, a lot of the privacy and crypto utility makes the most sense. But unless everybody that's like, just an everyday person doesn't start being their own bank, I don't think all of that e-commerce benefits of using crypto really appeal to them or us in general. Like I don't think anybody cares what they use as long as they can use it. But if we can make this make sense for the businesses, I think supply chain downline, the supply chain could incentivize the businesses will incentivize the customers, and I think that's the adoption rate will go at with incentivization, because I don't see the customers going, take my dash, I want to spend dash here, and if you don't, I'm going somewhere else. But I could see a supplier saying to a business, hey, if you use dash to pay for this shipment, we could give you a discount. It helps us, it saves us money, we get settled faster, so we'll pass the savings on to you. The business says, well, instead of buying crypto, which is a taxable event, why don't we start bartering and trading our goods and services for crypto? You see what I'm saying? I think that's the best angle. And I don't really know what the community can do about that outside of, if you're into crypto and you run a small business, find a way to incentivize people to spend it with you, and then figure out a way to like incentivize your supplier to take it from you.
Yeah, I do have suppliers that take it from me actually. And they do that because that's what I requested and because it's it's more expensive and time consuming for me to, wire money internationally or whatever. Um, I do think there's an opening for us to get in on the, to appeal to a large enough customer base to matter. So I feel like I'm definitely an outlier here, based on my interactions with other people and talking about this, but my experiences with credit cards have been horrible. I can't tell you how many credit cards I've had canceled on me or just stop working. I go run them. Oh, declined. Why? Call them. Oh, we don't like this transaction you did. And sometimes they're insane. Like I had a card frozen because I bought a 99-cent app on my store from Google. And when I called in, then they said they froze my card. Their explanation was, well, some of those internet companies are real fly by night. This is Google Inc. for 99 cents. Like, you kidding me? Like, so, and then,
It's wild.
buying from suppliers like through Alibaba or whatever, every time I put a credit card in there, it gets compromised. And I end up with fraudulent
That
charges.
makes
And my card
sense.
has to, like, it's a nightmare. And if you don't check your statement every time and look through every line, you're probably getting screwed because somebody's probably charging stuff to your card that, so obviously not all customers care about this. Maybe some aren't having this experience at all for whatever reason. But I think there's enough people that are, and there's enough people that just, wanted the original idea of Bitcoin that have, I think that just in the United States, if we can properly show how Dash Spend works to people, there's probably 1 million people that we can onboard, that are in the yes category. Now, that's less than 1% of the population. But if you onboard 1 million people, suddenly there's a customer base, for merchants, and it makes sense for them to accept it and maybe even offer a discount because it saves them on, fraud and nonsense or whatever. Um, I think there's a window there, that there's some low-hanging fruit that just hasn't been picked up by anybody, um, because, well, in a lot of cases, the point of sale experience is just awful. Even businesses, I know of businesses that do want to accept cryptocurrency and they don't because there's not a point of sale system that will work with what they have, with how they're set up. It just isn't available.
Yeah.
So if we make a few tools to make that better and show people how we can use like the in-app stuff that bridges Dash to regular for the major stores, I think there's a lot of opportunity to onboard people. And frankly, it's something that should have happened a decade ago with Bitcoin, and I think it's probably one of the biggest lost opportunities in history, as from a business perspective, that
Well,
didn't
luckily,
happen.
Dash has the opportunity for somebody to come in, submit a proposal for development of such an ecosystem. Maybe they do step-by-step proposal funding and they can crowdsource this, but I mean, you can't really do that with Bitcoin. I don't really know where to submit a proposal for a Bitcoin foundation to help me build on Bitcoin, but you could ask the Dash community to, hey, I want to help, do this, do that, and so I mean, to kind of bring it to that, what are your thoughts on, proposals and things like that, and maybe how people could utilize that with Dash more to get it growing again?
Well, there is actually a lot happening, first of all. I think our bottleneck at this point is actually integrating all the stuff that's in the pipeline, and bringing it to the customer. So we're not really short on projects at this point.
Nice.
But there are opportunities, uh, there to add more things or to do some outside development and whatnot. And the proposal system is a great way to do that. So anybody can, for one dash, throw up a proposal and say, hey, I would like to do this. This is what I have to offer the network. I'm asking for this much money. I want to do this, this, and this. This is why it benefits dash holders, users, whatever. And we've come across some pretty good um, developments that way. I mean, ultimately that's really how all of our developers are paid,
I
even
mean,
the
that's how I
the
got
Dash
this.
core. Yeah,
Submitted a proposal through one of my bros. It got funded, and I went and got a Dash tattoo because the proposal got funded.
nice. Um, yeah, so all the development for the Dash network is actually proposal funded. So even the core team is a proposal, just like anybody else. Um, but we've had some real good ones in the past. There was a company that did the Dash Direct for us, which was the kind of the original idea that is now Dash Spend. Um, and that I think is the most useful app in crypto currently. Um, but yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think there's also a huge opportunity in building stuff on platform. Um,
Well,
I don't know
with
if you've
vibe
looked at.
coding, I guess the opportunity is like really just there for the taking. Just somebody could vibe code their way through these proposals and really help, build out on Dash.
It's getting easier than ever. I've been working on a few projects myself there, as someone who can't really write code at all, despite having tried many times over the years. But the AI tools are getting to the point where you can actually make really useful stuff, um, if you're willing to put a little bit of time into it. Um, but yeah, we have a demo of this Yapper application on testnet now, which is basically like a decentralized X that runs on Dash platform. Um, and it has an integrated store feature that's kind of like a decentralized Shopify, or at least, that's what I envision using it for, as basically a replacement for some of these other services. And I think there's quite a bit of value that could be unlocked by building applications like this that haven't really been efficient to build on other networks like Ethereum, that kind of stores everything in the chain, and is very expensive to
Mhm.
update and maintain. And yeah, I don't know how deep we want to go on any of that stuff, but
No, I dig it totally. No, I wanted to jump a little bit into like, because back in the day, man, Dash was in the news as much as Bitcoin, like all the time. There was like, I think like, Dash had like what, a college or something coming out, right? With like a partnership. And there was like all kinds of just big, cool news stories. And like, I feel like maybe that's where these meme projects sort of looked at the success of these legacy tokens and projects where they're like, hey, They got Doge got a NASCAR, right? Doge had NASCAR. Some of the community funded it. Dash had the community help with like a college or something. I remember that. And then so I'm like, where's all these like big news stories? But then you zoom out and you see, oh, it's all the fucking memes and the shit coins that are doing the tactical things that projects like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Dash all used to do these things to get the mainstream's attention. And I feel like that has completely stopped and almost been handed the torch over to the meme coins to be in the commercials and to get their NASCARs and to be in the octagon for UFC and stuff. I feel like whatever happened to, Dash having major headlines, and is it even necessary or is it a requirement for like token success or mass adoption? What's your thoughts on Dash headlines and how can we make them again? I almost said make them great again.
So I love the fun old days of Dogecoin. I mean, that's why it's in my screen name handle. The only NASCAR race I ever watched was the one with the Doge car in it. But
Oh yeah, probably same actually. Now that I'm thinking
yeah,
about
it's
it.
just fantastic to see. It's just a fun thing. And then at some point, it just became all about hyping it to try to make a buck, and just became a lot less interesting to me. As far as a Dash and the hype, we got a huge amount of hype early on, and a lot of promises were made about what was going to be built on Dash and what it was going to become that, you know, had a much longer time horizon than the hype could, keep interest for. So people lost interest, and Dash became fairly obscure for quite a while. But it actually built these things. Dash platform exists now. Um, eh, you can do. There's so many things that have come along. The coin has become. We got the instantly respendable transactions. We got the Orchard privacy coming in. We've got token platform. We've got the data contracts, all kinds of really cool, really useful stuff built on top of Dash. And I think that's ultimately what's going to matter more than the hype. There's a lot of other projects that have had a lot of hype and completely overshadowed Dash. I mean, you look at the list of the top 100 coins, how many of them are meme coins that don't do anything, that don't like even say they're going to do anything really. They're just projects that people are hyping in the hope of selling for a higher amount of dollars later. That's obviously not a long-term sustainable thing for any project, I don't think. What's going to make a project sustainable in the long run is, does it have users? And do those users generate enough value to sustain the network? And there are very few networks currently that are in a place where they are actually sustainable. This is basically uh, you can pretty much say none of them at this point. There's a couple that arguably are, but the real challenge here is who can onboard enough users to have that sustainability and actually grow the network. And if you onboard users, there will be price appreciation that comes with that. If we onboard 1 million people to Dash Spend, as I believe is completely reasonable to try here, um, that's going to have a meaningful impact on the price. I mean, the the transaction volume on Dash is already pretty substantial compared to some of the coins that are
True.
much larger market cap than Dash. But um, regular usage essentially ensures a certain amount of market activity, um, and it gives you a barrier um, for where the price can go. If you have a meme coin that's hyped and people lose interest, um, or attention shifts to some other meme coin, there's no limit to how much the price can crash. Um, whereas if you have actual users, and I think this is essentially what happened to Dash last year, um, we completely lost the speculators at some point. And you can kind of see this on the
Mm.
exchanges. Um, Basically, our volume diminished to the point of the actual users. and the price bottomed out at like $20. And I think I think it bottomed there for a reason. I think it bottomed there because that was the actual usage on the network maintaining that interest.
It's
Um,
interesting.
I think that's our floor. And if we expand the user base, which, now is still fairly tiny, if you added a million people, uh, say you added a million people to Dash spend, um, and they on average kept $1,000 in their wallet at any given time, which is pretty reasonable walking around spending money at this point. Um, that's $1 billion of inflow.
Yeah.
It's $1 billion that you're taking off the exchanges and having in wallets that, people are spending at Starbucks and Home Depot or whatever. The whole market cap of Dash right now is under 400 million. So what would $1 billion of added user base do to the price?
Damn, and there's so
Um,
much room for speculative influx again. You know, it's not like
yeah.
Michael Saylor or Jamie Dimon are diversifying their portfolios into privacy tokens. And I think that maybe because of the regulatory boogeyman kind of still like hiding in the shadows, once we get that framework around privacy tokens more ironed out, which maybe who knows what they're buying, you know, on the back end OTC, that would never be reflected on the market. So we wouldn't know even if they were buying in bulk OTC. But they could be, right? Waiting for that opportunity. But once that regulatory framework is ironed out and we get some kind of genius clarity privacy act kind of thing, I think that'll open Pandora's box for companies like Michael Saylor and Jamie Dimon and to get more involved and publicly speak about, you know, because for how long did they call Bitcoin a scam while they were buying it, right? How long were they firing employees who got caught recommending it? And I feel like, you know, once it was legally allowed, they were like, okay, I changed my opinion. This is what we really think about it. We're going to start getting into it. We're going to do multi-million dollar DCAs. And I feel like once there's some privacy act that gets put out, maybe the last year of Trump's presidency, he might do a mic drop for privacy in commerce and, you know, just iron out that for us. And yeah, that's the next speculatory wave coming into Dash. I get the users are almost inevitable, but I feel like once we get the government on the side of the privacy shit, which will make sense because the government's like just like I said earlier, companies really want this more than the customers do. And I think the governments want it more than the companies do. You know, everybody makes fun of us being a corporate country, right? We're corporate American. I feel like the government does want to have their own private financial, you know, as well as be, you know, if you worked for the government, you're going to want to be able to do things privately financially. So the incentive's going to come from the inside out. The people that work at the government, they're the most incentivized people on earth to have a private transaction anywhere they do commerce, right? Like, you know, they don't want that data leakage anywhere. No, even if they're buying their kids an app on Google, they don't want that to come back to them. They need that level of privacy. So I think that's where, you know, the real opportunity for Dash is right now. It's sort of just in that waiting room, waiting for somebody to come up with privacy act, blah blah blah. Like we've been getting them with stable coins and other things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath on the government doing anything for us, but I think there's not really a barrier in the US to using a privacy coin over any other or under any other or whatever. I think the biggest problem we have as far as usage is the taxable event thing. What we need it shouldn't be a taxable event for me to buy a cup of coffee. Now, this is relatively easy for me to deal with as a consumer on my Dash app. I do basically all my commercial transactions in the same app. Click export at the end of the year, dump it into the tax software. It's not that hard. But that's a barrier that most people are just not going to pass, even if it's conceptually a pretty simple thing to do. Just the fact that there is a taxable event there and that they will, if there's gains, they'll have to pay taxes, or if there's losses and they want to get those, they'll have to, keep track of it. It's an annoyance that needs to go away. Um, and I think at some point they will have to do that if we grow the user base enough because it's just it's not a meaningful amount of money to raise. Like, yeah, if I get paid in a little bit of Dash and then I spend it to buy lunch, like what's the taxable event there? Pennies?
Mm.
It just it's a complete waste of time to deal with. But I think that's the biggest barrier to usage. Yeah, is just the potential tax implications.
Yeah, I feel like that user base is a lot larger than most people understand because everybody thinks very locally, but even your small barbershop probably does business online and probably does business with people miles away from the barbershop, whether it's for like aftershave or whatever. It doesn't matter. All I'm saying is that it's a lot larger, when you think of the user base potential. It's 8 billion and growing, right? It's a global user base potential. And even if, those users are a majority in Venezuela or El Salvador or wherever, it's still going to encourage the commerce, to do acceptance of it everywhere else, whether you're in America or Russia or China, because you're probably doing online business with people in Venezuela, and a majority of them are using crypto now. So it just makes sense for you to accept it, even if it's a small minority of your customers. You're saying no to free money essentially and just giving it to your competitor. If McDonald's accepts Dash, I guarantee you Burger King will accept it the very next day. And then that chain of event will take over from Wendy's to Arby's to everywhere
Yeah.
else. It just takes one to force everybody else in that franchise industry to sort of follow the trait and do the same
Yeah.
thing. I don't think
Well,
it's going to come from America, is what I'm getting at. I think it's going to
I
come
mean,
from,
it probably won't, but I'm in America, and that's what I know the most about. I know we're integrating a Aeon Pay, which I understand is a major thing that has like hundreds of millions of merchants in other countries that I'm not really familiar with here. So hopefully that'll be really useful. But you can go to Burger King right now with for Dash and probably save a couple of percent. So we have a neat system where you can save money by using it, and if enough people do that, these stores are going to want to take it natively
yeah,
because there is an enormous cost, you know, um, to accepting credit cards. You have a moderate sized chain of stores, you know, 10 or 20 convenience stores. They're spending six digits on credit card fees.
yeah.
Like that's another, it's another manager position they could have, or, another product line they could put,
I feel like none
it's
of that's
not
really a bug though,
insubstantial.
right? Like if you zoom out and look at it from, the top of the food chain's perspective, these are mostly franchises or whatever, people running things. Like the people that run McDonald's at the top of the food chain probably have a large investment in these payment processors like Visa, and they're invested in the banks directly. So all the things that look like, payment friction, for the top of the food chain, it's really a feature for them. It's not a bug. They make that money on all those inconveniences because they supply all the services in the middle. They are the middlemen. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really hard to cut out the
Yeah.
middlemen when they're not the middle, they're the top. The middlemen are the top men.
Well, yeah, I mean that's largely correct, and that's why Amazon's not going to be an early adopter of crypto because
Facts.
they have an advantage. Well, they are a payment processor, so they have that
Mm-hmm.
advantage. They're directly the payment processor. But other large companies that aren't, like Walmart's not going to have the same incentive because they get a better deal than the small stores.
Yeah.
They're paying a lower
Oh,
percentage. The
and their
bigger
gift
you
cards make
are,
them a bank. The more money
yeah,
they have in
yeah,
their gift card ecosystem is more money they get to spend without giving any goods or services away. It's
yeah,
free money.
yeah. Um, So they have a moat because of how the payment system works, which is gonna, yeah, it's gonna keep the incentives with the big players to not want to switch over, especially early. However, if the small players start getting crypto usage in non-trivial amounts, they're going to have the economic advantage. And the larger players will have to follow that. Otherwise, the tables have turned and they're at a disadvantage. Um, I think every small business should be supporting payment cryptos. Like it's to their benefit in every way. The playing field is extremely unfair,
Yeah.
especially in low margin businesses, for the big players in the payment space. Um, if small businesses want to even the playing field, they all need to be taking crypto.
Yeah, dude, it's weird. I feel like we were getting close to like a cashless environment, And maybe they were pivoting to crypto in some sense because now I've seen recently, about a week or so ago in New York City, they just made it a law forcing businesses to accept cash at the register. There used to be some businesses because of COVID, right? They stopped touching money. So it was a cashless business. You wanted to get your coffee, they only took tap and pay or cards or whatever, or crypto. And I feel like that was a big incentive for accepting crypto, was like, going cashless. But now there's a law forcing businesses in New York to accept cash paper money again, even though everything we know about it with the germs and the disease and just the failness of it, the reason businesses wanted to get away from it, it's now, all those reasons you had to justify not accepting cash because your life was in danger, because money was dirty. We don't care about you getting sick and dying anymore. You have to accept that money. That is so mind blowing to me to see that be a law when you look at like the facts of like, well, they were allowed to. Because I remember when people started to say we don't accept cash, that was almost unconstitutional in some sense. What do you mean you won't take my local currency for your business? Like, it almost feels un-American. How can you do this to me? But people got over it because they understood the reason behind it. It's just how disease spreads. It spreads on money. And now there's a law protecting it because I feel like they saw the incentive for crypto adoption kind of written on the wall in New York. And unfortunately, I feel like with more laws, they could always cater this to their objective, right? It doesn't really matter how great it is. And fortunately, laws can be written to kind of opt people out of even utilizing it, or the lack of laws could make people opt out of utilizing it. But the infrastructure is perfect. And to kind of like throw flowers at Dash's perfect infrastructure, Dash has been has had a working DAO since 2016. Probably like the longest running, most successful DAO period, but nobody gives it any credit. Is there any reason in particular you don't think that Dash gets the respect that it deserves in the overall blockchain ecosystem? Look at the failures of like Ethereum with their DAO, and look at the success of Dash with their DAO, right? Like, why is the recognition just not given to certain projects and given to certain other ones?
It's a good question. It's amazing to me how people don't see the like don't appreciate the value of the Dash DAO. And um I think maybe a lot of it has to do with price. If Dash was a 10 billion market cap instead of a 400 million, maybe people would care, which is kind of silly if you think about it. It's the longest running, arguably most successful DAO that's existed. And I think DAOs as a concept is underappreciated, not just
Yeah.
Dash. The DAO concept, frankly, should be applied broadly, far outside of crypto.
Dude, it
I
will.
think it's a model that could and should replace many both government, nonprofit, and business organizations. I think like um, health insurance.
Yeah,
Insurance should be a
facts.
DAO.
Smart contract
So
that shit out, man.
illegally you can't do it because the insurance rules are insane. But like, I'm a member of one of these not insurance programs, which is, basically a club and everybody pays into it and then we pay out. So it's insurance, but it's not insurance. Setting up one of those as a DAO would be excellent. I'd love to see that as an application on Dash platform.
Oh, that would
Um,
totally work because the people that
yeah.
go and find somebody who's like lying to their insurance company, they go to the supermarket and they say, "Hey, can you help me? Can you reach that cereal?" And they grab the cereal and they take a picture and they're like, "Hey, you said on your insurance claim you couldn't reach high objects. Looks like you got to go back to work and shit." Like that could be a bounty in the DAO. So like all the infrastructure is there. I think the rules framework actually is a mute point because that's a local concept that's very Americanized thinking. Again, globally, those rules don't apply. So even an American developer could build this DAO in Dash for an insurance company that is prominent in Venezuela, where the rules are a little bit more lax. The opportunities are
Yeah.
totally there. Vibe code that shit, guys.
Yeah. I mean, you could, I don't think there's a legal reason you couldn't do that example in the US either, but even if it wasn't legal, it's a distributed autonomous organization. Who's going to stop it? you
Yeah,
know?
true. Who's going to show up when they get subpoenaed? And that's why I think you're
Yeah,
right
I
with the
mean,
Dow thing. I think corporations are going to see the opportunity where they could obfuscate the repercussions and resources or repercussions of recourses to their community, right? If they Dow out and they airdrop themselves 51% of the token governance tokens and they have 49% in circulating supply to kind of sell out, right? And sell offload, they still get a majority control of the company if they want it to go one way or the other over the minority, decentralized voting mechanisms. But, they don't have to show up to court. They don't have to be liable for when the company gets caught dumping pollution in a certain area because they'll just blame the end user, right? Like the customer is going to be the one at fault because you voted on doing that. And doing that got the company in trouble. So now the Dow has to pay out these fines to this government. I think the fault being movable is exactly why corporations are going to Dow out.
yeah,
Oh, 1 second. I don't know why it does this every once in a while, but my headphones decide to disconnect and it takes the audio away from OBS. It takes like 2 seconds. It should be back in. Come on. They can hear me, but they can't hear you. I can't hear you because my headphones decided to disconnect from my computer. And it does. Here we go. And you're back.
that's a back. Okay. Yeah, I think there's some limitations to the DAO model when it comes to physical infrastructure. Like if you run a factory, I don't think a DAO makes a lot of sense because everybody has to be physically, locally connected anyway for that to work. The insurance company doesn't exist in a physical location. It's more of a conceptual and a programmatic money handling by votes kind of thing. Um, so I don't think the DAO model works for everything, but I think it works for a lot of things and could make a lot of things more efficient.
Especially the
Um,
Red Cross. We could finally validate the fact that they are or aren't building houses when hurricanes demolish them. I guess before we wrap up, the final thing I really wanted to talk about were masternodes. Dash
mm,
is known for it. It's sort of like what got it to where it is in sense, and I feel like a lot of that is also like the DAO's not acknowledged enough. And I'm just curious if you think that masternodes still have the value in a market that we have today, and in an economy moving forward. Does the masternode ecosystem make sense?
yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense. And there's a lot of levels to that in Dash. I think the first one that is, I think, obvious as far as a scaling issue. You know, I came to Dash during the Bitcoin block wars, and the argument was always, well, people won't be able to run nodes if the blockchain gets too big. I'm not sure that's actually true, um, but you can solve that problem very simply by paying the nodes. Pay them some percentage of the block reward, and they'll always be economically viable to run. And as a Dash node operator, it's pretty easy for me to see what the expenses are for a given volume and to extrapolate that. And at a price of like $40, you could scale Dash volume all the way to Visa level and have your nodes be economically viable at 1 penny transactions. How much more scalable do you need? I mean, for regular financial usage of a currency, that's it. That's all you need. And there might even be an order of magnitude beyond that. And that's if the price doesn't move. I mean, obviously, if you're doing Visa level transactions, the price is going to be probably a couple orders of magnitude higher, probably several.
Yeah.
So economic scalability is the first issue. Then, of course, it's DAO, the masternodes vote. Um, and we have a system now where people can buy partial masternodes, shares kind of in the same way that people can pool mine. So you don't have to have a full 1,000 Dash to take part in the voting
Yeah,
and
that was
uh,
nice.
be an be an active member of the network. So anybody with a single Dash really can take part and earn some income for doing it. I mean, you're paid to be a part of the DAO because master nodes are, I think depending on the node type, you're in like the 7 to 9% return range, which is not bad at all. I think it's been ignored because the price chart for Dash hasn't looked that great in previous years. But we start onboarding users that having 10% return on an appreciating coin is going to look very appetizing to people. Um,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of power there. But it also has a practical advantage for the network. We have an incentive for the network to have a number of nodes that's near optimal for network performance. Instead of just the Bitcoin volunteer model, like whoever wants to, throw up a node and the nodes can be janky and they're not punished for being janky or laggy or whatever. Dash nodes have to actually perform if they want to get paid. And the number of nodes is linked to the quantity of coins. So there's never going to be like 10 times as many nodes as you want for a coherent network. And there's never going to be too few because if people start turning off their nodes, there's more money for the remaining nodes, more incentive for people to spin up nodes. So it's a self-adjusting very much in the same way that Bitcoin mining is a self-adjusting economic system.
The
And then you
perfect
get it.
game.
Yeah. And it provides additional features in the case of like the instant send chain locking so that we can instantly send and resend Dash, which is extremely useful for consumers. In the case of platform, we have the data contracts that allow us to store all this information um, for decentralized applications and do it in an economically viable way where it can be, updated or deleted if it's not needed anymore. It doesn't bloat the chain forever. Dash actually has two separate chains. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole I want to get, but yeah, it's not going to bloat our money chain every time somebody builds an application. I think some other networks have this problem where they're just trying to do everything, and it's all going into this one bloated piece of
Or they
infrastructure,
layer
and then they're
two it
trying to
out.
figure out, yeah, and then it ends up going into these layer twos that kind of suck all the value out of the first layer.
Literally.
Um, so uh, I
Well,
think the
I wanted
the
to jump in because we're running up on time. Just wanted to jump
sure.
into like what you think the incentives are for retail or institutional investors to get into running masternodes for Dash. What does that look like? What's like the elevator pitch for retail or institutional investors to get a Dash masternode?
Well, I don't like to tell people what to invest in, especially when it comes to crypto. I think people should use it and decide if they think it has value. And I think if you use Dash, especially for the currency use case, and compare that to literally anything else there is, um, I think you're going to see some value there. And I think if you see value in something, then maybe you want to consider whether that value is properly reflected in its price. As far as larger, institutional or venture capital type investors, I think there is a large opportunity in Dash. You don't, it's because it's a DAO, you can buy in. Anybody without even identifying themselves could buy in and buy a couple of masternodes and have a vote and be an active part of the DAO without really doing anything. You could buy some venture capitalists could buy a handful of masternodes and then just start their own project to promote or integrate Dash into something. And I mean, it's it's such a ridiculous value right now, I think, price wise compared to what it can do that um for somebody that dumps money into startups hoping to and be able to help them uh accomplish something and get a large return on that investment. You could do the same thing in Dash. Um there's an enormous opportunity here. Say you got a company that owns maybe uh some retail establishments, or maybe they own a payment processor like a restaurant payment system or something like that. If they went in, bought some Dash master nodes, and then integrated Dash into all their infrastructure, um, I think you could basically play venture capitalist without any of the paperwork or making a deal with a company. And that I don't think is always going to be possible at scale. The price gets high enough, it becomes really expensive to buy in and do that. But at the current value, like uh if if you look at Dash's $400 million market cap compared to what's possible, what the addressable market is, all of crypto together is a tiny, tiny fraction of a percent of the addressable market. There's trivial transaction volume across the whole thing. It would not take, I think, that much for somebody to come along and create a situation where Dash could 10x its user base.
Oh,
I don't think that
easily.
I don't
It's
think it would be very
destined.
difficult. I mean,
No, it's coming. It's coming.
there's probably
Uh,
somebody out there that could bring it 100x or 1000x in a year if they wanted to, and you know, buy a handful of master nodes and make an insane return on that.
right.
I don't know who that is, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that could do that that has the right
I think time will do
uh
that, considering all these shit coins, meme coins, the fucking Haktua shit. Like, the reconsolidation period isn't something that has happened yet, right? We haven't seen that where all these $100 million market caps of shit coins get reconsolidated back into some of the top 10, top 20 OG projects. And that again is an inevitable time thing. We're waiting for these kids that got into crypto on Clubhouse and Spaces on Twitter and used mommy and daddy's credit card and stole a stimulus check to buy some shitcoin to kind of grow the fuck up. And I think even the next wave is going to learn a lot from like the Haktua stuff that like we learned from our mom and dad using the internet. They got scanned by a Nigerian prince asking for 10 grand so they could wire them 100 grand. We got a laptop at 10 years old and we already knew better than to fall for that shit. And I think the next wave of, kids that get into crypto at that same age or time, like the Clubhouse and crypto Twitter spaces got in, they're going to already know these like Haktua things are just a waste of attention, a waste of time, and a waste of money. And I think that's it. It's just maybe a 5-10 year window for those shitcoin kids to grow up and kind of be embarrassed by the fact that they even have Haktua in their wallet, knowing damn well that that's all public. If you tell me to send you some fucking crypto for the coffee I bought you at the store and I look at your wallet, I'm going to judge you for the shit coins that you're holding. And I think that is going to be something that social repercussions haven't really been measured on that sense yet. But when you start to look at wallets like Phantom Wallet, you can already see how social those things are getting. You can follow my wallet on Phantom Wallet. You can follow my market trades and stuff, right? It's all becoming social. So I think that aspect of like, oh, I can't believe you bought a scam coin or a shit coin. Like, it's going to be so embarrassing that I think that fad is so over. The reconsolidation period is inevitably coming. I give it a 5-year window because the youngest kids that got in 2020 were probably around 15 or so. Even 13-year-old kids were getting their moms to shake their titties on a pump fun live stream, right? There's like a little kid with his mom, you know what I mean? Like that's so that kid's going to turn 21 in a couple years. And he's going to realize how fucking cringe that is for the rest of his entire life. And then his kids or the kids that look at that content, they're gonna realize I don't want to be the 21-year-old who's 13 with his mom shaking titties on Pump Fun for 30 grand. And I think that is completely over. It was a moment. It happened, but everybody could be a Bernie Madoff the same way everybody could be their own bank. And I think the Bernie Madoff stuff, like in his era, it worked, but you couldn't be Bernie Madoff today.
Yeah, it just it has a limited amount. There's a limited amount of I think appetite for that kind of a thing. I mean, people will always gamble on the price of things, but in the long run, projects that do something useful will survive and rise, and the ones that don't do anything will largely disappear. That's just the nature of it. I think the bigger question is uh, what happens to the dollar in terms of price and stability. The big thing uh, holding back, I think, crypto to some extent is this volatility risk, which I think could be mitigated by better point of sale and stuff. Um, but if we have more and more inflation, which seems pretty likely, um, the dollar becomes less appetizing to hold and accept.
Yeah,
And right
volatility isn't a
now,
risk at that point, right?
yeah,
Volatility is actually comfortable
it's a
because it
benefit.
switches. Well, the volatility has always been there. It just hasn't been in my physical wallet. I don't see a $20 bill turn into a $10 bill.
Yeah,
I see gas go from $3 to $6. So the
yeah,
volatility has always been there. I just think now we'll see the amount of crypto that is required to buy something change rather than the price of it. It'll just
yeah.
be a denomination. I would hope that it's a mentality thing again as well, a generational thing. We didn't grow up playing Fortnite, so we didn't really have like a concept as a child of digital currency. But these
Yeah.
kids have been using digital currency since they existed in reality. There is no
Yeah.
reality that they are aware of without digital currency that they actually prefer. For Christmas, they'd rather have V-Bucks than cash because now they have to turn the cash into V-Bucks, and that sucks.
Yeah, and right now stable coins have kind of been eating the crypto transaction volume, but at the end of the day, they are just IOUs for dollars. And
Mm-hmm.
if the dollar performs very poorly, um, it's who's going to want to take the risk of holding an IOU for a dollar that's on a centralized L2 from a centralized I
Facts.
issuer. And there's just a
Dude, you
ton of
tell me
risk
what
there.
happens to the US dollar or USD? What happens to USD when money printer goes burr? And that money printer going burr now is derivatives of burr. It's like
Yeah.
the money printer going burr is now 10 different, virtual money printers going burr. At some point, to me, it's actually, I think stable coins are what's going to kill the US dollar. The
They
USD is
probably
dead.
will, because they are essentially just more inflation. Um, what they
And
figured
they're not
out
as
though,
protected through money markets. Like the US dollar and money markets is protected from manipulation and shit like that. Stablecoins, not as protected around the world. Other countries can try to do what they need to do.
yeah, they've gotten into a situation now where the government has figured out that we can just force all these guys to hold treasuries so that we can keep printing more money and have somebody to buy the, or, keep spending and have somebody to buy the debt. But it's really just money printing exported to the stable coins, which is kind of working because it's reaching markets that the regular dollars can't
True.
because the regular banking system doesn't work. So they're exporting all this inflation to other countries. So a lot of companies are using it for international
Hmm.
transactions. But there's a limit to how much they're going to be able to do that. And I think it's going to come around and bite the dollar in the ass.
Me too,
Yeah,
bro.
because
100%
it,
snake eating its own tail, bro.
yeah, uh,
It's a growing snake. I'll give it that, right?
yeah.
It's a growing snake eating its own tail, but it's not an infinitely growing snake. Eventually,
The
bro, it's going to end up biting its own eyes
yeah,
off for the back
the
of its head.
silver lining for us is that everybody in stablecoins can trivially swap those into real crypto.
Yeah.
So they're essentially
While the
building the
liquidity's still there.
infrastructure that allows a quick change. Because right now the real pain barrier is that people have to send their dollars to an exchange and then buy Dash or whatever
Yeah.
crypto they're using, and that's a lot of friction. But if you're already on stable coins, it's absolutely trivial to just swap that for Dash or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of making their own demise here with the stablecoin
Yeah,
boom.
stablecoins are the gateway drug to being your own bank, and there's nothing they can do about it. It's a free orange pill for every employee, no matter if you work at McDonald's or Goldman Sachs. If you start getting paid in Sats, that's it. You've been orange pilled into crypto, and there's no turning back. So yeah, it's their own planned obsolescence for sure. I guess we should wrap things up here. I didn't realize we kind of went over on time. My bad. But this has been an awesome conversation, bro. Let the community know where they could follow you on socials. Maybe join your community if you got one, especially where they could buy some of those custom made figurines for their board games.
Oh, sure. So on X, I'm Evil Duck 92. And then yeah, if you're interested in the board game pieces, it's boardgamemodder.com. And then I actually run dashmarket.net if you want some dash gear. So
Gotta grab your Dash gear. That's
yeah,
awesome, bro. And you
hats,
accept
shirts,
Dash,
whatever.
obviously, for the
I
figurines,
yeah,
correct?
I accept Dash and a variety, basically all the payment coins on my sites.
Oh, cool.
So,
Cool, cool, cool. Respect, man.
yes, happily take your cryptos.
Oh, before I
Um,
let you go, am I going to see you at Bitcoin 26 in Vegas next or in a couple weeks?
uh, Probably not.
Uh,
I
All
don't
right,
have any plans
consensus
to
or
go,
anything?
but I
I'm just wondering
I
because I've been
don't
asking all my guests if they're going to any more conferences.
I don't have any plan to. That's not to say I won't necessarily. But yeah, at this point, the only one I know for sure I'm going to will be the Dash conference, which I think is in September in Amsterdam.
Oh, dope. Man, would you be down to
So
help me submit a proposal to see if the Dash community would help me go to the conference and make content? I just submitted a proposal to the Bitcoin Cash community to go to, I think Slovenia or Lithuania, somewhere, and they're doing a conference called BCH Bliss. And they basically helped me get my flight, hotel, and some funding to go to the Bitcoin Cash conference and make content. And maybe I could do the same thing through a Dash proposal so I could go to Amsterdam for the conference.
yeah, I can show you how all that works.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much, man. That would be awesome. I actually was saving Amsterdam for when I turned 40 because, like, I can't believe I got to see as much of the world as I have already in life. So I was, like, saving something for my future self. But I do only leave my bedroom for crypto conferences. So if if there's a crypto conference in Amsterdam, I am doubly excited to go. Again, I only leave this dwelling to go to a crypto conference. You're not catching me at a music show or even in the movie theater. I wait for it to come out and I pirate it like a normal person. But much love, bro. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This was not another Bitcoin podcast. I'm Ken Bozak, and I want you to have a day.
Hello, happy bros. Hey, you're about to get a face full of the Ken Bozak. He's a mentor. That's what I heard. He's a connector. Oh, yeah. He's a brilliant leader. I've seen it. He's Ken Bozak. Oh, happy bro. You gotta get some Bitcoin and hold it. Happy bros. You gotta get those NFTs and you gotta hodl that stuff. You gotta hodl it. 'Cause I'm Ken bro. We got your Bitcoin, bro. He's an original. Buy some NFTs and hold them. How many times does he have to tell you? Going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. Going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're gonna get real high. 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 Yeah, we're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. Bro, we're going to the moon. Oh yeah, we're going to the moon. We're gonna get real high. Real high. Yep. Real high. Hello, happy bros. Come get some Ken Bozak.